I wanted to really just, and I know I addressed it a little bit earlier in my panel on why I got started with the Second Amendment. So a little bit about my history growing up. And I say my history because I am a California refugee. I joined the military at 19, but leading up to that, I had some life experiences that really showed me that people are capable of doing really messed up things, right? And it's not firearms that are these terrible, awful, evil things. It's the people that are committing these evil acts that we need to be dealing with, right? So growing up, before I was 9 years old, I had walked into 2 armed robberies where one of them I could positively identify the guy who is robbing the place. I was actually like right here at the counter as a little girl looking up at this guy, had a handgun right in front of my face. He could have shot me. He chose not to. He left, ended up getting arrested later on. After that, at around 12, I had a cousin that was murdered due to her gangbanger boyfriend beating up on her, and then finally one day he killed her. She had no way of defending herself and ended up a statistic. In high school, I attended Venice High School. That was one of 6 high schools I'd actually gone to. And at that high school, I had actually experienced my first, I guess, mind-opening moment to the fact that there is an issue with interracial gang wars in Los Angeles. And because of this, a kid by the name of Augustine Contreras was actually gunned down on my school campus. So after all of these things happened, I say, okay, I want to go to college. I had a terrible GPA in high school. I moved around a little bit, went to a lot of high schools. So I said, okay, I need to figure out how to do this. So I joined the military. And it was through the military that I really was able to, one, have the structure that I needed to succeed in life. But aside from that, it was really the way that I could take myself out of that situation and give myself a chance at life. And through the military, I got my education done. No, this is not a recruiting ad, but I am a fan of the military because of these reasons. Well, it was at my first duty station at Whiteman Air Force Base that I was allowed to move off campus. I was 20 years old and I had a female roommate who was in my same squadron. She was in air traffic control. I was in airfield management, and they had given us offset schedules so that it was basically like living alone. I had the swing shift, she had the night shift. So I'd get home, she would either be there, be at her boyfriend's house. Anyways, long story short, one day I get home after long days of work, and we were on 12-hour shifts because of the snow removal that we had going on at that time. And I go into my house and I realize that the back door is unlocked. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. Brittany probably forgot to lock the back door. Come back the next day, go into my house, can't turn on the central ceiling light that was in a ceiling fan. So I'm like, okay, this is really weird. Maybe the light bulb went out or something. Walk through a dark house at around 11 o'clock at night, get to the back kitchen, look at the back door after I turn on the light and see that the back door is physically open about 4 inches. After that, I kind of have a really awful feeling in my stomach that something's a little bit off. I recognize these signs, and you're kind of picking up on these things, but later on when you look back at it, you realize, oh my God, I really could have gotten messed up in that situation. I go to check out what's wrong with the ceiling fan. I realized that the light bulb had been unscrewed. So I start freaking out. I tell my work what's going on. Of course, my work says, okay, well, maybe you're working long hours. You sound really stressed. Maybe you need a couple of days off from work. I'm saying, no, there's something wrong in my house. I tell my roommate, she's like, are you sure? And then I call my landlord. Now, this is what's important. You guys will be like, holy crap, I never thought to run the background check on my landlord, right? My landlord's telling me that it's my roommate messing with me and that I just need to ignore it and continue doing what I'm doing. So I, of course, listened to no one. The one thing that I learned growing up and that my family taught me is always go with your gut instinct. And there's actually science behind that. Your body will actually pick up on people's intentions because of this thing called hormones. That's a scientific backing behind that. So for me, being in this situation, I was picking up on these things, interpreting them to signs of danger. So leading up to that, I had a cousin come stay with me. Then after that, I start asking my friends at work, who are guys. No, I was not scandalous, okay? These are actually my dude friends. I start asking them, I'm saying, look, there's something wrong with my house. Would you mind just sleeping on my couch, coming over? No problem. So later on, my roommate Carson from Detroit ends up becoming my roommate because he was actually there for me through this whole thing. But the night that this home invasion took place, I had a really bad feeling that something was gonna happen. And I remember calling my friend Jeremy and I said, can you stay at my house? Like, I'm not hitting on you, but someone's messing with me. I noticed my work doesn't believe me. My roommate's at her boyfriend's house. Like, I just don't feel safe. Comes to stay. At 4 o'clock in the morning, this individual was basically coming in through the back door, hoping that the sound of the train going by would cover it. Didn't realize that there was, a 6 foot plus 200-something pound cop from base staying there. He chases him out. We file a police report. And at that point in time, then my work is like, okay, someone broke into your house. We believe you now. So they actually ordered me and my roommate back on base because the local law enforcement wanted to essentially put us up as bait, and they're like, we'll stake out the place. So my commanding officer's like, over my dead body, are you using our chicks as bait so you guys can stake out the place and find out who broke into her house? So our landlord says, okay, well, I'll change out the locks. You know, we don't know what happened. It's probably still in your head, even though we have a police report, have witnesses, have alibis. The guy ended up getting caught because he saw my roommate's car there after our commanding officer had ordered us to only go there when we had alibis. She had her boyfriend pick her back up, left her car there, broke into the house, went into her room, ransacked it, stole underwear, stole photos. And when the cops went to investigate the second time, they realized that there was no 4 signs of entry. Meaning that me and my roommate had an alibi. Unless it was a locksmith, who it wasn't, it had to be our landlord. So when they looked up the landlord's rap sheet, which I did not know that you could still rent in certain states if you had a rap sheet, the guy had issues in the past with getting women drunk, underage, whatever. He was a sketchy character, but he was well known in the community. So at this point in time, we realized it's my landlord who's doing this. My landlord's the creep. He's the one that's been stalking me, and he still did not want to let us out of the lease. So what ended up happening is JAG. So do you guys know what JAG is? It's the military attorneys, basically. They say, well, if you don't let them out, we're going to basically bring charges on you for stalking federal employees. So only at that time did he let me out of the lease with my roommate, move back on base, totally freaked out. My husband's in the back there, and at this point in time, we were actually friends. And so he was like, if that was me, I'd kick his ass. And I'm like, okay, but you're not here, and this happened, and really scary. I'm glad to be alive right now. But for years, it was about 2 years before I could comfortably sleep alone in my house again. I went and bought a big dog, but I'm telling you, the minute it got dark again, I would go walk around looking at the doors, checking the windows, just could not sleep. It was awful. So I realized that being a military member, I could apply in the state of Florida for my concealed carry. I didn't have to go through all the crazy training that they make you redo if you want to get your concealed carry. And I got it within 3 days of applying for it. And I went out and I had a handgun, and that was probably the first time in my life that I was ever able to comfortably sleep ever again. So had it not been for that experience, I probably would not have become the advocate that I am for the Second Amendment. But then I realized something. On social media, there was an absence of women speaking up as to why we should be using the Second Amendment to really protect ourselves from these awful things happening in the first place. And then aside from that, you have representatives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying that we need to now go against the bank companies that are giving these loans to firearms companies so that we can skin, or I guess the term that she used is she said that we can skin a cat in more than one way. Meaning that she doesn't support the Second Amendment. She doesn't support people like me who went through these horrific, tragic experiences, saying that, hey, I want to take my own protection into my own hands and accept 100% responsibility on the fact that I want to always be able to defend myself, whether or not my husband is around. And when I do have future kids, I want to be able to defend them too. So here's my answer. Stop explaining to people why you have the right to own firearms. In that Second Amendment, you know that whole saying, shall not be infringed? I take that very seriously. I never explained to my school why I still carried, even though they said it was a gun-free zone, because I didn't want to be a statistic. I don't have to explain to anyone why it's my right to defend myself. Now, switching over to the activism aspect, you'll find on social media that there is something called censorship. I know because I've personally been censored. In fact, in order for me to get my profile fully verified, I had to remove every single photo of me with a firearm. Why is that okay? Why is it that we've allowed our elected officials, why is it that we've allowed legislation to take place that's censoring the American people? And now you have people that are openly socialist saying that they want our firearms. I mean, let's look at what happened in Venezuela. You talk to people from these other countries that say, well, it started with the firearms. They took that from us. And then overnight, we ended up a socialist and or communist country. That Second Amendment will protect this nation from becoming a socialist, communist dictatorship. So if you have, in any way, shape, or form, the ability to stand up, whether it's on a platform to 2 people or a platform to 2,000 people, you better stand up and you better fight for the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment will keep us a free nation.